Entrepreneurs Over 40, Episode 4, featuring Robert Morales, better known as Traveling Robert on YouTube.
I took the risk, it's been a lot of work and a lot of fun, but I'm one of those lucky people that has been able to make a living out of his passion, out of what I love to do. So.
You're listening to Entrepreneurs Over 40, the show for somewhat mature entrepreneurs and side hustlers. And now your host, Greg Mills.
Our guest today grew up in Cuba. He worked in the tobacco fields a few summers, fulfilling his debt to Cuban society until his parents got their liberation letter and were able to leave. He immigrated from Cuba to Spain with his parents while he was only in his teens. Though Spain, after about a year, came to the U.S. and settling in Miami, Florida. He went to high school and got his first job at Winn-Dixie. He went to school at Miami-Dade College and later Florida International University, where he studied radio and television broadcasting. He went on to have a long and successful career in the television industry. He got hooked on RVing when his brother-in-law rented an RV to visit a family member in Georgia. In 2008, he created a YouTube channel named after himself and began uploading travel videos that he had taken. By his 47th birthday, he could see a path going forward and quit his job to focus on telling the travel stories by video full-time. He does all his own photography, video editing, and music. Did I mention he has his own podcast and is married to the love of his life, Ileana? He's riding in his RV. Without further ado, let me introduce to you Robert Morales, better known as Traveling Robert.
Hi, Greg. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Could you take a few moments and fill in the gaps from that intro and bring us up to speed with what's going on in your world?
No, I think you pretty much covered all the bases there, and at some point in 2017, I was in this dead end job in this sort of dying industry, and I saw that my YouTube career was starting to take off, and I took the risk. It's been a lot of work and a lot of fun, but I'm one of those lucky people that has been able to make a living out of his passion, out of what I love to do. So.
Okay. Now, did your wife, what did she think when you were discussing quitting your job to go full-time with your launching your show and your YouTube channel?
For the most part, everybody has been always very supportive. Of course, there was always, I'm sure, a hint of doubt in her and my mom too. Like, have you gone crazy, this and that? But I was confident. And they were confident too, in a sense. We had been seeing the YouTube channel kind of almost duplicate the number of views and subscribers and therefore revenue over the years. So every year kind of. So I figured in 2 years we're going to be able to break even and this is going to work. And it did.
That is awesome. So when your parents were traveling all over Cuba with you, did they take video and photography of their adventures? And did that kind of inspire you to do your own?
Yeah, absolutely. At the time, we're talking probably beginning with the late 70s in Cuba. There was no way to do video. But my parents were always into photography, and we still have some of those pictures. They used to shooting slide film, which actually some of them have been preserved pretty good over the years. So I have all those pictures, and they would always take pictures. And I would always imagine in my head, because I always wanted to do video or movies or what have you. So in my head, I would imagine how some of that would look in video. I would have died to have a video camera back in those days when I was a teenager, like early teens,
Yeah, it just wasn't accessible, even in the U.S. For the longest time, we only had Bell and Howell.
Yeah, well, you can do like the 8mm film back in the day in the 70s. That was what it was, and then until I think the 80s. But I used to drool. We used to sometimes get these magazines from the outside world, and we used to drool about the Sony Beta movie and these cameras that were coming out. And I'm like, oh, I wish we could have one of those. And not only was it unavailable, it was somewhat illegal at the time to own one of those in.
So is there a particular historical figure that you look up to and inspires you regarding traveling and telling tales associated with it?
Well, there are many, of course, but of course, one of my favorite writers that I read was as a kid, as a child, in the Spanish translation was Mark Twain. And Mark Twain has many quotes about traveling. As you know, he was a very well traveled person.
Oh, it's incredible the places he went to.
I mean, he was born in this small town by the Mississippi River, there. Actually, he was born nearby, and then he grew up in Hannibal, Missouri, and then he was all over the place. And he has this quote that begins that travel is fatal to prejudice. And I forget exactly how it goes after that, but it's like we have a lot of preconceived notions of different places and different people around the world. And when you travel, you learn and you change those preconceived notions. And that's, to me, that's very deep, because I've experienced it myself.
We've gotten into watching a lot of travel videos or just videos about different countries, and it's amazing how many statues of Mark Twain there are. Like in Czechoslovakia, I think there was Liberia had one.
His legacy is known all over the world, and it's incredible, because I remember as a kid I saw a TV series about Tom Sawyer, but it was made in Russia. They shot it in the Volga River, so the Russians made a Russian version of Tom Sawyer. This must have been the 70s.
Well, you should check out their version of The Hobbit too. So,
yeah, I believe that they have one of those that is like I don't know how many hours long. The Russians were famous for these super long movies like War and Peace. So it will be interesting to see.
How often are you on the road per year? How do you choose your destinations?
Well, actually, oddly enough, one of the years that I traveled the most was last year, when we were just supposed to travel many places. But I chose, mostly outdoor places, unpopulated places, and that's last year was strange in that sense, because I had to plan around that. But the year before, I estimate in 2019, I was almost 6 months on the road, and then the rest of the time, editing the videos, doing the work. And there are many ways that I should by which I travel. I plan my travels, and nowadays it's easier nowadays, because I get so many suggestions from so many viewers now that I have a large audience, that I have all these points of interest marked on my map, and I just go through those. And I use this app called Road Trippers a lot, which gives you points of interest near your area. Near your planned route. You say, I'm going from here to Orlando. It'll give me things, within 10 miles of my destination, of my route. That's that kind of thing. And then I also read books. Books. When I went to Denver, Colorado, I bought the Moon Guide, the walking tour of Denver. And right now I'm reading a guide to the East Coast to find, and then you combine that with other resources, and it's a combination. I mean, there's no one single resource by any means.
This is definitely your passion.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then I just look on Google Maps, what I'm going to my destination, and they usually have like points of interest kind of on the map as well. And I like if it has like a little tower or the icon that might be interesting. Maybe I'll look at that. So. I also listen to podcasts. I listen to The Amateur Traveler, and that's how I planned my West Virginia trip, for example. That kind of thing.
We saw the episode when you went to Grandfather Mountain and the Blue Ridge Parkway. It's amazing. You start off in, might be in the 70s, pulling into the place, and then you get up there, and combination of the wind and the cold, it's almost unbearable.
Yeah, it was like 32 degrees up there, and I was not prepared for that.
Yeah, we weren't either. You ever come through Charlotte?
I've been through Charlotte twice, actually, and the second time, it was unfortunately my wife had to fly back to Miami, so I dropped her off there at the airport. And then I met up with another YouTuber and content creator. His name is Brian, and he gave me a tour around Charlotte. I do want to go back to Charlotte at some point.
Yeah, let me know when you do.
Yeah, he lives in Mooresville, just north of you, and actually, where my first car died, it was in Mooresville, just north of Charlotte.
Okay, that was the Kia Sorento? Or?
Yeah, the old Kia. Yeah, that's when they decided to quit. Yeah, that was probably one of the most stressful situations I've encountered on the road. But people are kind. Most people everywhere are kind, and eventually I got bailed out.
Yeah, unfortunately, you don't hear about the kind ones. It's the ones that aren't that make the news.
Unfortunately, that's something we learned in journalism school. If it bleeds, it leads. And you seldom hear good news on the news, unfortunately.
What gives you the most joy and satisfaction regarding producing the Traveling Robert show?
I want to say it's the freedom to be able to have to do what I love, and getting to see so many different places around the United States. But I really appreciate the freedom of not having that daily grind of the daily commute to downtown and then.
Rub it in, brother.
No, I'm not rubbing it in, but as I said, I consider myself very fortunate and very privileged to have been able to do this. But getting to know the country and the world, eventually I want to, when it is allowed again, I want to do more international travel, meeting people from different places. But as soon as they let us travel over there, that's probably going to be next year. As much as I love traveling around the United States, I love to get a little out of my comfort zone too. And I don't know if you know about our trip to Finland, Norway, and Sweden. That was in 2018, and that's a great series. It's on YouTube and on Amazon Prime as well. And it's in the end, there are more similarities than differences between people in the world, especially in the Western world. I haven't gone to Africa or Asia or other places, but it's just the language barrier sometimes gets you, And actually, also traveling in an RV in Europe, you end up going to the supermarket, to the convenience store, to different places, and you have a more intimate experience with the locals and trying to figure out the language, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think we were planning on going over and we were going to take the Swiss rail because they've got a very efficient Swiss rail system.
I've heard it's beautiful out there. That's one of the places where I want to visit as well.
Yeah, we will definitely be trying that again soon as we can.
I think this year is going to be sketchy in some places, but I'm hoping that by 2022, we're gonna be able to travel.
What are the frustrations about producing the Traveling Robert show?
Actually, one of the few frustrations, and it's not a frustration, it's just a matter of time management. Manage the time. I want to see and travel, see as much as possible. But I have to manage that with the time that it takes to edit and produce the videos, and once in a while, come up with the new music for the videos, and that's one of the challenges. And the other challenge up until now, I think that's going to change on my next trip, is that my wife, she has a job, and up until now, she's had to be static here in Miami for her job. So she only joins me on her vacation time, and a lot of the time that I spend traveling out there is on my own, by myself. So that's another frustration that I think we're going to be able to overcome this year.
Okay, so she's going to be either able to retire or to work remotely.
She's going to be able to work remotely.
Okay.
Which brings another set of challenges, of course, because she has to work at the same time we're traveling. And as you know, a reliable internet is not as reliable everywhere. But, it's a set of challenges that I'm looking forward to tackling.
Yeah, you'll overcome them.
Yeah.
How long does each video take both to shoot and to edit?
Well, to shoot it depends, and the shooting part I don't even count them as part of my time, because it's fun. It's why I enjoy doing it, and I enjoy editing too. But editing is a time-consuming process. If any of you have ever edited video, you really have to like, and I do. But yeah, I'd say it depends on the video, of course, but it could take up to an hour per minute you see on screen. So if this week I posted a 40-minute video, that was a full-time 40-hour week for me.
I don't think most people realize that.
Yeah, after it's not only putting the videos together, you have to put it together with the right music. You have to do voiceover, do research, and sometimes I need to do color correction and stabilization and different effects that I put. Sometimes I put a map in the middle of the video showing my route. Everything takes time, and I love doing it, but it's a time-consuming process for sure. No, nothing is ever simple, and we live in the golden age of video editing. Try that with two, Betacam machines, and you're doing it on tape. You make a mistake, you have to go back to the beginning.
So, is there one episode that comes to mind that you're particularly proud of or enjoyed making more so than the others?
Oh man, there are many, and there are the popular ones that I guess the public in the end is the judge of that. There's my first cross-country road trip to the West. That's one of the most viewed videos. There's that our first long trip with the RV. There are many. One of my favorite is the one episode on Death Valley. That's the one of the ones that I'm most satisfied with the way it came out. But of course, there are many. And also because that was one of those places that I didn't expect. Some places they disappoint you, some places they overwhelm you, and this is one of those places that I had not seen anybody make a complete video of Death Valley, and then I was there and I was like, wow, and I think I covered it pretty well. I'm satisfied the way that I covered Death Valley. And I didn't even get to say the whole thing. But of course, the most popular videos that I have are these long videos, like the 4-hour driving to the West video. And those are basically compilations of shorter videos that I've made into long movies. And yeah, people love those.
How did you figure out how to make a living with your Traveling Robert show platform? Was there any type of coaching, or did you just read a book, or do online research? How?
I didn't really do anything like courses or anything like how to make money, but I did watch some of the gurus at the time that they teaching you how to make better videos and how to kind of tweak your online presence on YouTube. One of those is what's his name? His channel is Video Creators. He was one of the ones that I followed, and I learned a lot from a lot of people. Nobody gives you like the whole story, but I learned that consistency, thumbnails, and actually putting out a good product are like the main things, And you can play with words and link bait and try to make an interesting headline. For some videos that works, but eventually you have to find your voice, and my voice was telling these stories about travel, and be somewhat unique about it, finding that niche and respecting your public and interacting with your public. That's what I do every Friday. I do a live stream every Friday, and people ask questions, and it's just like a 1-hour hangout with the public, and especially when it stopped being a hobby and I really wanted to, when I quit my job and failure wasn't an option anymore. I decided, it's like everything, you can learn anything, and I decided to learn and try to learn as much as possible about what made that YouTube algorithm work for you.
How do you make the majority of your money? Does it come from sponsors? Does it come from YouTube itself?
Okay, I'll break it down, and I don't have exact figures. Of course, I'm not that organized. The big chunk comes from Google, from the views. I get over 1 million views a month, so that translates into percentage of money. I also have Patreon. I sell my merchandise. I sell the T-shirts. I sell CDs. I sell stickers. That kind of thing. That's a good chunk too. Some of my videos are on Amazon Prime, and that's a part of it too. And then sponsorships. Lately, some companies have been approaching me, and if it is a product that I think it's good or it kind of will resonate with the audience, I have this short commercial in the middle of the video and make money from that too.
Like, for example, the VPN.
Yeah, Surfshark VPN. Yeah,
everyone needs to be using a VPN in public nowadays.
Yeah, especially whenever if you have to connect to a Wi-Fi out there, So I have, of course, an AT&T plan and a Verizon plan, and I try to have both. But sometimes there's neither, or the internet is the biggest challenge. I can't wait for Starlink. I already signed up. And I want to see if that's going to work out for us. Much.
Well, Elon says it will, and Elon wouldn't lie.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, he's putting people in space, and he's has whatever that guy touches generally turns out good. So
yeah,
I have high hopes.
So where do you see the Traveling Robert show going in the next few years, both literally and figuratively?
Well, I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing. I think it's working out. It's working for me, of course. I need to, of course, find new places and new venues. I'm never going to get bored, but not to get bored of doing the same thing. And of course, I'm always going to be revisiting some places that I visited in the past. Some places change. Some places, I just want to go back to, like Valley of the Gods in Utah, or back to the West Coast, some places that I want to go with my wife that she hasn't seen yet. And then, of course, there's Europe. There's the Camino de Santiago in Spain, which is the route of St. James that goes from France all the way to Santiago de Compostela. There's the Pan American Highway in South America. So there are many things that in the future I might do to get me away from that comfort zone and continue growing as a traveler. And I stopped having goals. I wanted to do all the 50 states by the time I'm 50. I'm not going to be able to do that because of the current situation. And I'm not counting countries. But I just want to do what feels right for me, what is fun for me. And I hope that it's going to be fun for the people who watch my videos or listen to my podcast or follow me. Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever thought about maybe writing your own book or organizing some sort of travel with Robert caravan?
Eventually I might, but I have enough trouble writing a newsletter every week or two. So someday, and this is my thought. I'm going to spend a couple of months in a cabin in Alaska and
Where at?
maybe, isolate myself. What's the name of this town? It's right after I was there. I was there in 2010.
We went and traveled that Dalton Highway and stopped off in Palmer, Alaska.
Yeah, the Dalton Highway is right after Cold Foot. It's this small town. In any case, it's above the Arctic Circle. It's up there. They have a bed and breakfast. It's called the Arctic Getaway, and it's just cabins. It's in their address is Fairbanks, Alaska, but online, but it's not Fairbanks, Alaska.
Yeah, we spent some time in Fairbanks too.
Wiseman. I know it started with a W. It's called Wiseman, Alaska. Yeah, and it's a small town. It's like 10 people who live up there. But it's very, very beautiful area, and I would love to spend some time there and maybe write a book.
Yeah. Did you get to see the Northern Lights when you were up there?
No, I was there in summer, so it never got dark.
When we went to Fairbanks, we had the opportunity. It was definitely dark enough and cold enough, but there was only one night where you could sort of even see something. It just wasn't in the cards.
Well, that was my plan, my original plan for 2020. And eventually that's what I want to do. I want to do the RV trip to Alaska and just linger long enough for it to get dark, linger into maybe mid-August when it starts getting cold and it starts getting dark, and maybe, see the Northern Lights before heading back south.
Okay, that sounds like a good plan. How long do you see yourself doing this? Any reason not to?
No, as long as I have my health to be able to do it. And I don't see myself. I might slow down, but I foresee myself traveling as long as I have the health to do it.
What would you advise to someone either pursuing a travel vlog or starting out as an influencer, with either a blog or a podcast or something along those lines?
First of all, I would do what you like, because when you do what you like, you're going to do it best. And when you do something at your best, you're going to be the best version of yourself, and people are going to see that and appreciate it. And it takes time, so just persevere, be consistent. And if on YouTube, or it could work for a podcast or a blog too, good eye-catching thumbnails. I cannot stress that enough.
Yeah, I never thought that would make such a huge difference.
Let me tell you, I almost have 180,000 subscribers. Or did I pass 180 on YouTube? But a lot of my views don't come from subscribers. They come from people who they just finished watching a video from someone else related, and then they see all those thumbnails on the right hand side of the screen, and they click on the one that looks best. Usually, that's where most of the traffic comes from.
Yeah, I remember seeing one page, I think it was on your YouTube blog. It might have been like the community or something, that had 46 million views. But yeah, you only had 188,000 subscribers. So that gives you an idea. Do you have any new projects coming up or anything that our listeners should know about?
I'm in the process of redesigning my website. That's the only thing. And I have this gentleman in Naples, Florida, who is doing a great job of it. And the next project is the upcoming trip to the Northeast, if all goes well, and the Northeast, and then the whole East Coast. That's the summer 2021 trip in the works.
What's your advice for somebody that might be claustrophobic, but that likes to travel? How could they get used to traveling in like your mini Winnebago?
Let me tell you something. The only times when you're going to have trouble perhaps are like bad weather days when you have to stay inside, but you get used to it. I've lived 4 months in a row in that 19-foot trailer, and at the beginning it feels kind of claustrophobic, but eventually you get used to it, and it's easier because you're sitting at your desk and the refrigerator is right here. You don't even have to get up to grab something from the fridge. And then I come here to my big Stickers and Bricks home in Miami, and everything feels huge. I think you can get used to it. And if you're claustrophobic, get something with big windows so you can look outside and it doesn't feel as constrained, especially on on bad weather days. On good weather days, small house, huge backyard. That's the RVers what we say,
That's definitely one way to look at it. I may have to revisit that.
And if you don't like your backyard, doesn't matter. You can move and you get a new, better backyard the next day.
Had any problems with driving with other drivers, particularly with with an RV or?
Less than you would imagine. Less than you would imagine. Driving into a city, especially like Miami, Atlanta, New York, it's stressful with a car. Imagine with towing a trailer behind you. And you have to be aware of your length. You have to be aware of certain roads that maybe you shouldn't go on. You have to be aware of underpasses. You have to know your height more than anything. Actually, a couple of months ago, I went through an underpass in Ohio that I only had like 4 inches to spare. So I'm like, well, let's see if it fits. I went really slow, and let's see if Winnebago told me the right height.
We've got a train overpass and through the underpass, and I can't tell you how many times I've seen a truck get stuck going through it.
They have YouTube channels dedicated just to that. It's one of those like 11 and a half passes, and you see boom, one after the other. But those are the things. And if you're towing a trailer, be aware of dead ends. It's happened to me more than once. Luckily, I've gotten pretty good at backing that trailer up, but still, it could be scary and sometimes. Oh, by the way, before I wrap that up, don't do like me. Don't do like me and rely on Google Maps. If you're gonna get a large trailer, get yourself a GPS specific for RVs and trucks. Just because it helps a lot.
I didn't know there was a specific GPS.
They Rand McNally and Garmin make one, and then there's a couple of apps also for the phone, and it will route you through easy routes and routes that you won't encounter.
Okay, that's good to know. What book do you recommend to someone either starting, their travel vlog or influencer journey? Do you have a book that you'd recommend?
For someone who's starting a travel blog, I don't really have a book for that. Not really. I started reading one that it was called Vagabonding or something like that. I didn't find it all that compelling. I can recommend several travel books for inspiration, not to teach you how to write a travel vlog or how to make a YouTube channel, but for inspiration, travels. Yeah, Steinbeck's Travels with Charlie. There's one called Blue Highways. Anything Bill Bryson ever wrote is good. Like if you want to travel abroad, one of my favorite books, and just because I haven't done that trip yet, is called In a Sunburned Country by Bill Bryson. It's about Australia. And those are some of those books that are so well written that even if you don't ever intend to go to Australia, you should just read it for the humor aspect and for other things. Yeah, it's a 20-hour flight, but to begin with, depending where you are, so or more. So yeah, you have to think about it and plan it well.
Which makes Mark Twain visiting
Can you imagine
by ship.
that took weeks, if not over a month, right? To go crossing that Pacific crossing must be. I would love to do that. Actually, that's another thing that I would love to do. And I know you can do it on a cruise ship, but you can also book passage in cargo ships. That's something that I might explore. I might explore at some time in the future. It would be really cool to live from like the port of LA and a couple of weeks later arrive in Shanghai or one of these places.
You think you'd take the RV with you?
That's probably impractical. But I wouldn't mind going to Australia and renting I think it would be more like a camper van, what they have down there.
Okay.
And spending a month, roaming around Australia. Imagine it's a country the size of the United States, but very few things in between. So it will be an interesting cross country trip.
I'd like to visit there. I'd like to visit Iceland.
Oh, Iceland too, and there's that loop road that goes all around Iceland.
Yeah.
That it's that's also there's so many places. A lifetime, 10 lifetimes wouldn't be enough to satiate that wanderlust as they call it. So I'm never gonna run out of content to put on the YouTube channel. That much is certain.
What's been your favorite travel destination overall?
Well, I always like to say the Grand Canyon in the United States. Around the world there are others, but the Grand Canyon, even in the world, it's one of those places that is impossible to photograph or videotape. Nothing can replicate the experience of standing there on the South Rim at the widest and deepest point and looking at that grandness. It's really an emotional experience. I mean, you could spend months, years in Utah and Arizona and not see all the beautiful places in just those two states. Mm-hmm. So, and that's just that chunk of, it's sandstone, all the red sandstone structures out there. But the Grand Canyon is the one that I would put it at number one. Probably Monument Valley at number two if you want to do the iconic Western trip.
Is there a piece of software or an app that you use that is in your business that's been indispensable?
Well, I use several apps for video editing. I mean, I used to do Final Cut. I switched to Adobe Premiere, but they're both comparable. Each is better at certain things. But I'm using Adobe Premiere right now. In fact, I use the Adobe suite for, Adobe Photoshop is essential. I know there are other graphic softwares that you can use to edit pictures and do the thumbnails and things like that. And then for graphics, I use Motion a lot. Motion 5 is an Apple program. And for the music, Logic Pro on a Mac. And that's for music composition. It's just easy and it's super powerful, but it's relatively easy and quick to do certain things, and that's what I use for all my audio recording. So those four would be the essential apps that I use pretty much for everything.
Yeah, your music, your audio sounds great. Definitely, your hands above a lot of the content that's on YouTube with that in that regard.
Yeah.
So, what's the number one piece of advice that you can give to the EO40 listeners?
I kind of gonna quote Gary Vaynerchuk, which is one of these, I use it. He's a motivational speaker these days about business and all that. But I used to follow him when he was a wine person. But what he says is that it's never too late. You see people at 70. If you have the passion to do it, you can start at 70, even if you perhaps don't have as much time left as someone in their 30s or 20s. But it's never too late to start. It's never too late to start with your passion, and getting to exploit or to the best version of yourself. Sometimes you just stay doing something that perhaps you're not best at, but it's comfortable and it's good and it works for you. But maybe it's not what makes you happy. And I think at any age, as long as you have the health and the mind to do it, you can do it.
Good words of advice. You need to heed those. Seize the day.
Seize the day. And that's what happened to me. I was in my mid-40s in a dead-end job, and I'm like, it was okay. It was a nice office in downtown Miami. I was doing okay, but I wasn't happy. So I decided to make the pivot in my life.
All right, that's a wrap. Thank you, Robert Morales, better known as Traveling Robert, for being a guest on Entrepreneurs Over 40. You can check him out at his YouTube channel, Traveling Robert. We'll have links in the show.
Yeah, thank you. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere. So check it out.
Will do. Thank you again. Some of my takeaways from our conversation with Robert Morales, he reminded me of the Mark Twain quote, "Travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness." These words are still true today. While Robert makes it all look easy, just the video editing alone runs 1 hour per minute. Each video that he does is a labor of love for him. He taught me that consistency, thumbnails, and actually putting out a good product are the main things, but eventually you have to find your voice, find that niche, and respect your public and interact with your public. Lastly, he advised us it's never too late. It's never too late to start with your passion. Be sure to check us out next week for episode 5, where we interview Mitch Graff, and he talks about 6-star customer service.
Thank you for listening to Entrepreneurs Over 40. Check us out at entrepreneursover40.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or your favorite podcast directory.